Gonna read off a couple signs, guys. Anna Marie Ross was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 1820. I'm gonna skip that. Soon after the start of the Civil War, Ross helped organize a committee which consisted of both men and women volunteers to provide food, shelter, and clothing for Union soldiers passing through Philadelphia. I'm gonna skip that. Ross soon realized that some of the soldiers were also in need of medical assistance since there were no military hospitals in Philadelphia at the time. On December 26, 1861, the Cooper Shop Hospital opened on the second floor of the Cooper Shop Saloon. Ross, with the assistance of Dr. Andrew Nebinger, surgeon in charge of the hospital, was able to solicit large donations and supplies from private citizens as they received no direct government support. Ross became lady principal of the hospital and was almost always present. She saw to it the soldiers heading home were properly clothed and provided travel money. Ross took the responsibility of contacting the families of soldiers that died at the hospital and ensured that they received a proper burial. On February 15th, 1862, Ross organized a committee to establish a permanent soldiers' home in Philadelphia. This facility would assist soldiers who were returning from the war with mental and physical ailments. Mental and physical. In the spring of 1863, Ross organized a large fair to raise money for the home and later traveled to New Jersey and Pennsylvania, giving lectures to solicit donations. Several days before the opening of the soldiers' home, Ross began suffering from fatigue, numbness, and coldness. On December 23, 1863, the day the home opened, she suffered a paralyzing stroke and died. On the day of the opening, she was originally buried in Monument Cemetery in Philadelphia and later removed to Longview Cemetery in Rockridge, Pennsylvania. So, Anna Marie, bless her heart, Anna Marie Ross, only lived to be 43 years old, yet dedicated a lot of that life to helping others during the Civil War. Here we have Emily Virginia Mason, Confederate volunteer. Born in Lexington, Kentucky on October 15th, 1815. I'm going to skip a lot of this. She moved to Michigan and then moved back to Virginia. Soon after the start of the war, Mason set up a hospital in Greenbrier White, Sulphur Springs, Virginia, now West Virginia. At this hospital, she treated Confederate soldiers from Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and the Carolinas. On Christmas Eve of 1861, the Sisters of Mercy from Charleston, South Carolina, arrived to help Mason operate and organize the hospital. In the spring of 1862, Union troops were advancing on the area. Mason and her hospital staff were forced to evacuate to Charlottesville, Virginia. During the 7 days battles in June 1862, Mason and her sister Kate went to Lynchburg, Virginia, to run a makeshift hospital and a Methodist church. In the summer of 1862, Mason was appointed matron of Camp Winder Hospital near Richmond, Virginia, one of their largest. In addition to her nursing and cooking duties, she spent her time at Camp Winder, writing letters, praying, cooking, and singing for the wounded soldiers. She also made trips to Libby Prison, one of the most notorious, and Belle Island Prison camp to assist in the care of the prisoners. When Richmond was captured in 1865, Mason helped evacuate the wheelchair-bound Mrs. Lee from her home. Then Mason was asked by an old friend, Union Surgeon Alexander Mott, to nurse captured Confederate officers and wounded soldiers of the U.S. colored troops. From 1865 to 1867, Mason worked to provide care and find homes for 30 girls orphaned during the war. In 1867, she published the Southern Poems of War and used the proceeds to pay off her debts and provide for the orphans. After the death of Robert E. Lee in 1871, she wrote and published his biography. She then took a vice principal position in a private school for American girls in Paris, France, and remained there for the next 14 years. When Mason returned to the U.S., she settled in Maryland. She died on February 16, 1909, and is buried in Baltimore, Maryland. So she lived a very long life. She lived, 85, about 93 years old. 43 and 93. So just wanted to breeze through those guys because I'm going to try to add a little commentary in a second. Now, we are entering one of the restrooms because after a few visits to this place, I finally found out that there's one sign that's not out there, and it's right here. So here we have one more story about a famous nurse during the Civil War. Ada White Backett, Confederate nurse, born in December 31, 1832. Well educated and both of their daughters died at an early age. By the start of the Civil War, she was a young, childless widow. Soon after war broke out, she wished to go to Virginia to work as a nurse in the hospitals established by the South Carolina Hospital Aid Association. Only her father supported her efforts, and lack of funds made it difficult for her to make the journey. After several attempts, she finally arrived in Charlottesville to begin nursing in December 1861. Initially, she was the housekeeper of a boarding house for nurses and doctors. Another nurse who worked at the Monticello Hotel Hospital was seen as too flirtatious, so their duties were switched. Following the switch, Backett was placed in charge of the meals at the hospital and also helped with the hospital laundry duties. Very important. Don't forget, sanitation practices were still not too great in the time of the Civil War, or just before the Civil War. After the war, we certainly learned much and knew better. Backett is one of the few Confederate nurses to keep a diary during the war. Very important. She writes that the hospitals were overcrowded and understaffed. All the hospitals, as you can imagine, as I've always mentioned, all the hospitals, all the prisons were overcrowded and understaffed in the North and the South. Like many women in the South during the Civil War, her tasks were restricted to mainly non-medical duties. She read to the soldiers, wrote letters home, and discussed religion with them. In 1863, she was offered the position of head matron at another Charlottesville hospital. She declined the offer. In November that year, abruptly returned home. She remarried, but her new husband was killed in battle shortly thereafter. Following his death, she briefly returned to nursing work in Kingstree, South Carolina. After the war ended, Backett remained in South Carolina and helped establish a thriving family business. She died on April 11th, 1911. So she lived a pretty long life. 18th, so that's, 67, 77, 78 years old about. I wonder if anybody's in here. I can't believe I'm going to do this, but so there were just kids in here from a group tour. I'm going to speak to you from the podium. No, I'm not going to do that. Someone's probably going to come in. So there's one more sign on Clara Barton that I wanted to get to. Maybe I'll do another video and include her, but there are some kind of overarching themes which I hope haven't been lost on people at this point. Show you some paraphernalia. Ooh, I'm taking one of those. Ooh, I'm taking one of those. Quite obviously, much of the care during the Civil War may not have happened at all without, of course, there was Joshua Letterman. He was the chief surgeon for the Union, and there's lots more to say about emergency care or triage and the ambulance system, which were all developed during this war. It did not exist. People don't understand. Triage and emergency care and, removing people from the battlefield. None of those practices had been fully established until the Civil War. So that's a very important point. But equally as important, so I've been here quite a few times, guys, or at least 2-3 times before. And sadly, it just dawned on me how important women were to the war behind the scenes. Now, a lot of us are familiar with the war in general, the big battles at Gettysburg and Antietam and stuff, and we know they were horrible, and we know that lots of people died, many, many casualties, 50,000 in Gettysburg, and so on and so forth. But the stories that often aren't told are the stories of the horror, the death, the triage, the treatment, and the care, and the nursing. And I cannot explain to you guys how important these stories are to the overall story of the Civil War. They absolutely deserve place and deserve a lot more attention than they're given. Unfortunately, my time is up, guys, so I'm almost certainly going to do one more video while I'm here. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you certainly come down and visit this place when in Central Maryland. And until the next one, I'll see ya.